As the strike moved into its second week, it became clear that the executive was on borrowed time. Two particular events would confirm that the Sunningdale experiment had run out of road. The first was a failed attempt to force a return to work on the 21st of May. There then followed Prime Minister Harold Wilson's ill-fated and infamous Spongers speech on the 25th of May. The executive was eventually forced to resign on the 28th of May with, as our testimonies demonstrate, a mixture of reactions.
Len Murray, maybe a few others, I can't remember if there are others, but and led this big back to work march thinking that there was all this popular support, that the strikers were were intimidating people, and people given the chance to get back to work would come out in their droves, but they didn't. And they'd something like 150 or 200 people, and showed themselves to be completely out of touch with what was happening at grassroots.
Like trade union leaders come over from London to say, we're going to lead the workers to work because the workers are socialists and they want to work and they don't want any of this nonsense. And it turned up, and about 200 people showed. And I said, well, that's entirely down to intimidation. That expected 5,000 to get 200. Nobody intimidated 4,800 people. People just didn't support the concept of breaking the strike.
The organisation of that back to work march was it was going nowhere. Because you had Billy Blease, great guy, nice guy, friend of my dad's. The Northern Ireland Committee guy. But then you had Andy Barr in the CP, Jimmy Graham, people who organised it. They had credibility as trade unionists, but they didn't have credibility on an issue that's political. So the CP did its best to delegitimise, get this strike off, and it was totally bringing Len Murray over. And many people to get on, a couple of hundred. It was a joke, and just strengthened the campaign.
When Faulkner, at the last minute, got the text of what Wilson was going to say, I think he buried his face in his hands. When he called the strikers and those who supported them spongers on the British Exchequer, well, people actually, they pulled off bits of sponge and were wearing them as badges at their lapels. This was an insult from the Westminster government. Who do these people think they are, said Wilson. Unelected. And there were those who said, look, in the end, the British government would end up with no friends in Northern Ireland. The nationalists already were no friends of the Westminster government. And Wilson was actually well on his way to making no friends among the loyalists and Protestants.
Well, I remember, I remember that there, because that's one of them times when, and watching on the TV, my mother and father were angry about that, spongers, we've been working here, that type of thing. That didn't go down well at all. I think I laughed. There was always a wee tiny percentage of hope that he would act on it. This wasn't a labour dispute. This wasn't a strike aimed at bringing democracy. It was a strike aimed at bringing democracy down, qualified terms within the 6-county state. And, he gave the impression that he was going to, act against them and act decisively, and he was a wimp.
It was my most vivid memory of the strike, I have to say. The spongers, calling the unionist people spongers. We were the people of the song, we were the people who were loyal to the crown more than anyone else, and he dared to call us spongers. And I think that if anything cemented the strike and brought it to a conclusion was that, because that just gave people more resolute to see this through. If they needed more resolution to see it through, or more backbone or whatever to see it through.
It's hard to find a worse form of words And I remember at the time listening to the speech because I was expecting great things. And once I heard that expression, I thought, this is absolute disaster. You know, just as internment on Bloody Sunday was a recruiting sergeant for the IRA, this was doing exactly the same on the other side.
When the strike was over, I think people kind of breathed a sigh of relief that it hadn't led to anything inside the prison. You know, that the fear that there was there at the time, something could have come out of this, that was kind of like a relief, you know, that it was over. So, you know, life goes on inside the prison type of thing, you know what I mean?
It was like a 12th of July. So it was. I mean, the streamers were out, the flags were out, people found food from wherever they had hidden it, you know. There was street parties galore. The barricades were coming down, you know, everybody just, there was a whole sense of relief. It was like the war's over.
But at the same time, I just remember the terrible, terrible despair when it ended. It was so extraordinary. It was so sad because the Republicans were just sitting in the wings, basically, in Andersontown waiting, and this chance had gone, and the thing is, it was gone for a very long time.
Felt like they were dancing on your grave. You know, it really felt like after what we'd been through and the level of fear and the intimidation, all of a sudden everybody's very joyful that we're not moving forward, that we're going to stay in the same status quo.
The famous day when all the tractors basically blockaded the Prince of Wales Avenue, that iconic mile from the gates on the Newtownards Road up to Parliament Buildings, was to me frightening, because you wonder what are these people capable of, and then what's the consequence? Okay, so we've brought down our government. What is next? Why do these people want direct rule when their Prime Minister has just called you a sponger? So why do you want to give them more authority over how we're governed? So there was a lot of uncertainty in my mind about what was going to happen next, but also about what was the logic of doing all this.